upon this quick while I remember it. How did they know 2 years ago that the Russians were going to lose? They made it in a movie 2 years before the Russians pulled out. It's because there's something we really still don't know about the true Russian-U.S. relationship behind the scenes as all this was taking place. Zbigniew Brzezinski even admits, as well as some other Kissinger types from that era of the time, that they baited Russia into Afghanistan in order to weaken it. That means they were playing with people's lives. That means they didn't care about those people. So you see Brzezinski go over there in the famous clip, and then of course there's Charlie Wilson's War and all that. The movie, the recent Hollywood movie, people can go and watch. Brzezinski goes over there and says, "You are fighting for God. Oh yeah, you are God's people. You're defending your land, so you're good. You're good." And look at the situation that we're in now. But to echo Mel Gibson and Braveheart, along the lines, the theme of that movie, Rambo 3, that scene there you played. They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedoms. You know, this type of a theme people associate with Braveheart, the Anglo-Saxon Westerner that's fighting off the king. No, but this is all of us. It's like we're seeing a similar experience throughout time and history. Throughout the world, we've seen this. Groups conquered by New World Order type, Illuminati type systems, even if they weren't called that in that part of the day. I have ancestors, Vinny, that were fighting the Islamic Empire in parts of Afghanistan. They were fighting their rule. They were Persian George Washingtons running around saying, you know, the Muslim extremists are coming. The Muslim extremists are coming. They don't teach that in American history, that there were people fighting them then. And they're alive in the history books. I think of my ancestor, Abdullah Ansari, that was buried in 1064 AD. He was a Sufi. And Sufis in the East are like Gnostics in the West, or mystical people, New Age ideas. Not to be confused with New Age religion.
I thought it was like not to be confused with the souffle, which is a kind of dessert.
We don't want to cause confusion between souffles and Sufis.
Are they just as sweet as? Yeah.
But Afghanistan holds a special place in my heart, and I pray for the people of Afghanistan, and I feel my ancestors in spirit, and I've heard others say, in terms of spiritual teachings of Native Americans, there's power when you remember your ancestors. There's something to that, and remembering their name, even if your family never told you about your ancestors and what they stood for and what they fought. And I know that this guy was railing against whatever establishment at that time through his poetry, through his words. And then 1,000 years later, millennia, the echo seems to be in my heart, in my life. You know, I'm looking around and I'm going, where's this in the rest of my family on that side? But this is not my story. This is our story, Vinny. You know, when I heard you speak on some of your shows, it's like this guy reminds me of Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. I listened to a few more of your shows a couple years ago, and you're quoting him. You know, so it's like we're sharing this. I don't like to use the word hive mind, but there is something to this collective awareness, and we see this truth being mirrored in the words of others, thousands of miles away. And yet, even though we're not alone, and we are a family, for whatever reason, we're separated by thousands of miles, and we're 1 in 5 millions. We're 1 in millions. We're doing our thing, but maybe God or the universe is set up to be that way. Maybe we're not all supposed to be in one spot, in one state or one city, like, you know, in our own private utopia, a wonderful community. No, we're where we need to be.
We're like,
and I think
we're like, you know how fruit, for example, the reason why your fruit's sweet is because it's got a chemical in it called fructose, right, which is much sweeter than sugar. Your body can't process it properly. It gets broken down by your liver like alcohol does, except if it's got fiber in it, which all fruit has. So what nature does is it packages the poison with the cure. They've packaged this world in the evil of the New World Order and given us the fiber in here to cure it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I still get shocked at how many things are containing high fructose corn syrup. But just stepping back and taking another look, as David Icke says, this is just all a mere representation of how dumbed down our society has become. And in a recent video, you were on someone else's show, it mirrors the same headline I just put up on my YouTube channel. We're awakening to the fact that Earth's under some sort of satanic occupation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and people get caught up in this term 99%. We are the 99%. I started thinking more in depth about this term. We are the herd. We are the masses. I just became so disgusted. Who would want to brag that they're a part of herd mentality? No, it's the 1%.
Oh my God, I just got that.
Yeah. It's not 99%, that wants to see the end of this system, whatever someone chooses to call it. Capitalist, New World Order, the Jesuits, the Zionist system, whatever they've come up with. The Bilderbergers. Now, it's less than 1% that even seems to see this.
Yeah,
and
that's actually what my point. That's what my point has been all along, is that throughout history, even today, 1% of people do 99% of the work. So to claim that you're one of the 99% is to claim that you do none of the work.
Right. And I was talking about Sufism earlier. That represents like a 1% type of thinking. That's like an interpretation of Islam that's like, no, I'm not going to worship you. Like, you're going to beat me up if I do something wrong. I want to understand you. I want to understand this we are all one concept. They had it back then in the quantum realm, how to be like you. The true teachings of Christ. Be like me. Don't worship the people that say that they represent my teachings. No, be like me. Run out and help the world and stand in the face of all these demons that want to lead you astray. I think that's the awakening, Vinny. There's been an awakening to. I want to talk about solar cycles briefly in this interview and what I've learned about that in 5 years. But this term Archon, you've had a couple people on, did a roundtable show. I've been researching this since the summer of 2012. I've always been interested in reptilian, gray, we're not alone ideas, but it hasn't been until Alfred Weber had Laura Eisenhower in that famous interview from last year. Even though they were on together before and did some stuff, it just seemed like it developed a viral nature. And then it started to, like, dots in my head were connecting. Look at how many sci-fi films where the Borg is represented, an artificial construct type of a non-human parasite evil force that's working on the part of something more evil that just hates humanity and will do everything in its power to turn us against each other and infect our minds. This information that John Lash, you probably have had him on, has this brought to light, has awakened people to an even deeper concept that maybe we're here in human form to learn how to fight these things, to learn how to overcome what they're doing to us, almost activate some sort of inner power, if you will. True spiritual warfare, taking the sword from the stone, decapitating the demon in the archetypal mythological into the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where it's a woman, not a man, the feminine, that is decapitating the dragon. So I think these memes that we're seeing and just this knowledge of the Gnostic texts and the Nag Hammadi, to me, in my own mind, there are less questions that I have. It seems like so much is being revealed to me personally and to people like you and your guests, that we are being given the ultimate goal. We are now being given the knowledge. We've been given now the knowledge with proof and evidence there's something wrong. We're under attack. The species is under attack, and it's so organized. It's not a few Rothschilds and Rockefellers behind it. That's ridiculous. And then this other knowledge is coming in. Wait a minute. Being human is more than just eating from the trough and eating at McDonald's and drinking fluoridated water and being a part of some sort of a religious cult or following the left-right paradigm or watching sports. As human beings, we have hearts, which is the greatest concentration of electromagnetic energy in the human body, the area when we love, where we love from and receive love, the heart chakra. And I can go on and on. We're learning about why a lot of us, we're even here, Vincent, why we're even on the earth. And when you get to that point, when you know why you're here, there is no asking the stars and heavens with frantic tears, when are people going to wake up? Because you start to realize that it's only the minority that's waking up to these deeper truths.
And more to the point, to add on to that, it's only a minority that actually needs to wake up in order to overthrow them. You have a look at every successful revolution throughout history. Every single time, it's never been more than 5%, usually much less, that have actually... here's the thing. Founding fathers laid down their lives, their fortunes,
right,
and their sacred honor. Okay? If you are willing to lay that down, heaven help any enemy that comes against you.
Right. And I'm going to sum this up really briefly because there's limited time. I'm really interested in these solar cycles, small ones and large ones. People can look up people like Maurice Cottrell on Coast to Coast, and he'll take you down the different types of cycles. But this 2012 one we just went through was just one of many. And it's still going to take some time to see the effects of whatever galactic center we're going through. But when we see these major renaissances throughout time, you can see peaks in solar activity and changes in climate. And I did a keynote presentation. It's the one thing that got me out of the desert, Vincent, and I really needed it. It was in April of this year. They flew me to Philadelphia, and I gave a 200 slideshow presentation on the sun's effect on consciousness, but cycles of war. We can see periods where events that have been staged by them have occurred in peaks in solar activity. 9/11 is the best example of our day. And we can go from 9/11, even the day of 9/11, we were seeing fluctuations in the magnetic field the moment that those towers were hit by the planes, and the moment that those buildings came down. And scientists took a closer look at this. The fear generated by all those people watching at the same time, those events on TV were somehow affecting the magnetic field. And there is so much evidence that there is a direct connection between our consciousness and the field of the Earth itself. Now, when we see more solar flares hit the Earth, we go through magnetic flux. We see geomagnetic storms like they talk about on spaceweather.com. You can sign up and get the updates in your email. And you may also start to see the patterns as I started tracking 4 years ago. People getting in fights, domestic stuff. You may find yourself pissed off and just ready to blow. And you're going, why do I feel this way? And you find out, oh my God, we were just hit by a solar flare. There's something about the human body and our aura, our own magnetic field, that is affected by these changes. And I have concluded it's not conclusively, altruistically, absolutely positive and enlightening and heart-opening. It can be very chaotic and freaky. And how people respond to these magnetic fluxes, geomagnetic storms, is in direct relation to the level of their consciousness, or if they're able to handle that energy in their body. This is why I see patterns of more heroin addiction, alcoholism, smoking, other forms of escapism during solar peaks, because as humans, we get flooded with the energy. It's fight or flight on another level, on a more subtle level. We see more babies born. We also see more divorces. Is that because human beings are more hornier for more energy coming in from the sun? See, we start asking questions as to why does society have certain trends? When we go beyond just physical realities and the economy and the war and earth level events, when we go higher, we see these larger patterns. And we are going...
that it's a reciprocal relationship, that the sun affects us and we also affect the sun. Ergo, it must be possible for human beings to actually create their own renaissance without really the need of the sun to do it for us to a degree. Do you reckon?
Dr. Burl Payne. I will now cite Dr. Burl Payne is the man that did studies on people doing mass meditations to quiet sunspots on the sun. Now, this is not to say that sunspots are evil. I had another friend say, why would you want to quiet sunspots? It's linked to evolution. It's linked to also great botanical life, great growing seasons, rather, in areas where there's not a lot of flooding. The plants respond to that increase in solar activity. But to quiet the sunspots during a time where the world is about to go to war may be a beneficial thing if we were able to bring it to more of a, or to quiet rather, the magnetic field, which is what we're, I think, maybe even more able to control than the sun itself. This is an area that's new to me, but there are people that are looking at this. And I think it's more evidence that we do have this connection with the sun, and it's linked to evolution and consciousness. Burl Payne's been working with this many, and he's also done studies on the magnetic field around the human body, which he calls the spin force. And he sees, and he's detected in some of his studies, greater spin around the human body and around certain objects when there's more geomagnetic energy in the air. Clockwise,
it's kind of like it's kind of like the Van Allen radiation belt. The Earth produces itself these kind of dual sort of mushroom-shaped auras around its northern and southern hemispheres, and it actually produces this radiation belt. It's a big magnetic field, and it protects it, but it also affects other things around it negatively. And this is something that the people who were traveling through space earlier were really worried about when they went to the moon, or allegedly went to the moon. that they thought that they might be cooked in their little space capsules like an egg.
Right.
You know, and what I find very interesting is that they've now done studies of humans as well, and it turns out that the heart actually produces a very similar looking magnetic field around it as well. So it's like the fractal universe, you know, as above, so below. Everything produces the same kind of thing. Like a